Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of the videos series here looking at the B&W models. This one, the newer 606 S2 model. It's I guess a fairly popular speaker right now. It's been out for a little bit. Some of the YouTube reviewers have reviewed it from what I hear. I haven't watched any of those reviews. I don't know whether they liked it or not, but there were definitely some issues with this thing. Measurements wise, let's just get right into it. Let's take a look at the on-axis response. If you look at the on-axis response, you'll see a little bit of lumpiness going on. You'll see that right around 1200 hertz or so, there's a little bit of a peaked area there where it's a little bit of brightness there. As it comes up in frequency, there's a little bit of brightness there. And then it drops off, and there's some big humps going on after that. And it just kind of begged the question of what the heck is going on there? What's with the little lumpiness? And so I shot them individually, shot the drivers individually. It's got a bi-amp or bi-wire configuration on the back, so pop off the little piece of tin that goes across the terminals back there, and then you can shoot them individually. These little clips, I hate these things. I don't know what they're made out of. I guess tin mostly. And there's some ferromagnetic stuff going on the connectors on the back with some nuts and all kinds of crazy stuff. So at least it allowed me to shoot these things individually. And with a first order slope, it definitely showed some of the problems associated with a first order crossover. If you look at it, the crossover point is at 3500 hertz, and looking at these individual slopes, you see the red line is how they sum, the green line is the woofer's response, and the purple line is the tweeter's response. Now look closely at the graph. Check this out. From about 400 hertz to 1.8k hertz, so 400 to 1800 hertz, that's right in the woofer's range. You'll see that the green line, which is the woofer's response, is a little bit higher in output than the red line. In other words, when they sum, the output is less than just the woofer playing by itself. The reason being is the tweeter plays down so far in frequency at such a low range that down there where it's in that frequency range, the tweeter's time arrival is out of phase from the woofers, and it's reducing the woofer's output. So you're hearing some things within that region that are out of phase or out of time because of the time arrivals of the tweeter versus the woofer. You see the same thing as frequency increases. If we go up to the range between 5k hertz and 7k hertz, you'll notice the purple line is higher right through that little range there than the red line. The red line is the two summed together. So what that means is that the woofer's response, which is playing up so high, as it gets into that frequency range up there between 5k and 7k, the time arrival is out of phase with the time arrival of the tweeter, and it's reducing the output. So we've got phase issues almost from one end to the other of things just not really being in phase very well. They're in phase right at the crossover point, but the slopes are so gradual. They're reaching so far into the other's range that they're out of phase at each other's, at the tops or the ends of the range of each driver. So it's a bit of a mess. The other problem is the FS on this tweeter is around 600 to 700 hertz. And if you look at the frequency response there, that purple line, you'll see that at that frequency range, it's still at 75 dB before dropping off there. So 75 dB to where the reference level is, let's say it's at 90, it's only 15 dB down at the tweeter's resonant frequency. So some of the in-your-face screechiness that you might hear as you bring volume levels up might be the fact that the tweeter is hitting its FS a little bit, and it's drawing a little attention to itself there as it hits that spot. Let's look at the off-axis response. The horizontal off-axis looked okay. Vertical off-axis, we see it dropping out at the crossover point as you start moving up and down. So first order slopes, remember, they're very gradual. So as you're changing your vertical orientation up or down, you're changing the time alignment at various points within the speaker's range. So, and then you see that stuff start to drop out. So it was in phase at the crossover point, dead on the tweeter's axis. As you move up, they become out of phase, and it causes a hole. So the total in-room response will be a little imbalanced because it's not consistent over a wide range. It's choppy, more choppy in the vertical off axis. The impedance response looked okay. Tuning frequency there, let's see, 20, 30, 40, 48 hertz, somewhere in there for the tuning for this port on the back. That's perfectly fine for this little job. And spectral decay shows the lumpiness, but it looks okay. It's not bad. There's a little bit down low there, a little stored energy, a little breakup, something going on there down low, but not bad. Now, taking these apart was a trick. I mean, first of all, we've got this little beauty ring, and you have to go around the woofer popping it out. Not a problem. Then you got all these screws holding the woofer in. Once you get that out, you can see the crossover, which is mounted on the binding post cup, which you can't pull out very far because they don't leave any slack in the wiring. Now, another thing here is this tweeter is mounted from the back side. Yes, you heard me, from the back side. To take this out, you're going to have to get up here inside the tweeter with some kind of special tools and unscrew the 4 screws that hold this thing in, and maybe then it'll come out, pushing it out from the back side. It's one of those deals where it's not replaceable. If you damage it, throw the whole speaker away, buy another one. There's no fixing it. There's no easy way of swapping these things in and out. So I told the owner of this speaker that sent it to me, look, we can't disconnect this tweeter. We can't pull it out, pull the wires off, solder new wires on. It's not like that. The wiring that's on it is on it. I said, well, I can cut the wiring right at the crossover and design a whole new crossover for it. I have to use this wiring that's on here, and we'll be limited to the wire that's on the tweeter. When we build a new crossover and set it in there, you're going to have to connect this set of wiring to the crossover, and there's enough length here. You can connect it outboard, and then you can put it inside the box. So very doable. The customer said, yes, go for it. So they got cut right at the crossover. Crossover got pulled out. The wiring was run through the port. New wiring was connected to the woofer, all run out the port so that I could externally work on this thing. Now, one surprise, it was a good surprise. Whenever I cut this wire, I noticed this isn't just PVC jacketed wire. PVC is a horrible dielectric material to be put on speaker cables. It definitely has an effect on the signal. It degrades the sound compared to higher quality dielectrics like polyethylene or Teflon or something like that. But I noticed when I cut this, there is actually a thin white polyethylene sleeve over the wiring, and then the PVC is put on top. So kudos to those guys. They didn't go full polyethylene, but on the part that's actual touching the wire that's around it, they did use polyethylene and then PVC over it, it looks like to me. So that was pretty cool. So this wiring is not that bad. Pretty decent stuff. So here's what I did. Ran the wiring out the back through the port over here and externally mounted a new crossover on it. What I'm doing is I'm measuring as I'm going. I'm looking at the curves of the drivers and creating something completely different that the drivers prefer. Something that works. First order slopes did not work with these drivers. So let's look at what we've got now with a new crossover response. Notice now the crossover points move from 3,500 hertz down to about 1750 or so. So much lower crossover point. And I'm sure you're thinking, oh my, that's got to stress the tweeter. Oh, that's going to be hard on the tweeter. No, it's not. It's not near as stressful for the tweeter. With the first order slope, if you look down at the lowest frequency range of the tweeter, it's still got output at 75 dB there. It's at 15 dB down. It's at its FS. With this one, it crosses the FS line at like 1200. I mean, it crosses the 75 dB line at like 1200 hertz or something. So it's rolled off more steeply. So it's not playing down to its FS. It's not going to have that squawk and squeal or whatever you're going to associate with that when you put too much power on this thing and the tweeter starts squawking at you, really shouldn't have that problem. The steeper filter really took care of that and controlled it. The woofer's response also a much smoother roll off. I did a little bit of a notch filter on the woofer, and we got out that brightness that was right at that 1 kHz, 1200 kHz region, knocked that thing down and balanced it out. Now you notice on the on-axis response, there's a little bit of a dipped area in the tweeter's range from about 3 kHz to 7 kHz. You notice the balance, there's a little bit of a soft spot there. I left that there because as you start to move off axis, it comes up. Let's look at the 10-degree off axis, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's almost flat all the way across that whole region. So definitely a speaker that you'll want to listen to at 10 degrees off axis, not aimed right at your head. You want to tilt it out a little bit, or even leave them set up so they're facing forward in the room, and that might help with the overall tonal balance. The very top end after 10 kHz to 20 kHz does drop off a little bit. That's just the way the response is of the tweeter. Horizontal off axis now looks okay. I mean, there's a little bit of a proud area there where I left it soft, so that should balance things out a little bit because I left it a little bit soft there on the on axis. Vertical off axis now looks great. You're just starting to see a little bit of a dipped area right above 2 kHz, and that's at an extreme vertical off axis. So great there. Impedance looks like an easier load now than it was. It's a little more balanced. There's not as much rise. And the spectral decay is a little cleaner. We've got a little bit of that energy that was down the woofer's range. We got a little bit of that out with the notch filter. And all that lumpiness is gone. So it dissipates that stored energy evenly and smoothly. So it's a lot more balanced now. So I put together a little kit, new crossover parts, new wiring, and a set of tube connectors to replace one of the sets of cheesy binding posts. Just remove one set of the posts, drill the cups out for some tube connectors. If you want, you can parallel one of the old binding posts to it with a little loop internally, and then you can use either or. I love it when you guys do that because I always get a call back or an email telling me how much better the tube connectors sound than the binding posts, and you can't believe how much difference it makes. I get those all the time. So do that, replace one set, do a little loop. And so total parts package came to $275. So not bad considering you already paid $900 for something that was not that great. And then add in the $275 upgrade, and yeah, hey, not bad now. Not only did I fix those issues, but the parts quality is going to come up considerably. We've just got 3 parts in the tweeter circuit, and that cap is a Sonic cap, which is going to improve clarity by quite a bit. No sandcast resistors or anything like that in the path. The woofer circuit, big air core inductor from Ursi, and Ursi poly caps, and an Ursi poly cap there in the notch filter that smoothed out that woofer's response. I tried to do it in a way that didn't require putting lots and lots of parts on this thing. I kind of thought about putting a little notch filter on the top of the tweeter to pull that little bit of a peak down at around 700 hertz, 7,000 hertz or so, but to be honest, it's really not that much of a peak, and it's pretty high up, so I felt like it was better just to leave it be and not start throwing more monies at it, just to fine-tune it a little bit where it's really not that bad, and in the off-axis it starts to drop off in that region anyway, so it is what it is. It has now a balanced response. Parts quality can go up tremendously, and the sound quality will go up considerably. You also might consider lining this with a sheet of no-res. I didn't include that in that price, but it would not hurt to, oof. It especially sounds bad when those binding posts are not tightened down all the way. If you are not using one set, don't leave them loose because they rattle like crazy. Yeah, lining it with no-res will help tighten up some of that enclosure resonance and improve the bass response and lower vocal region quite a bit. That's it for upgrades to the B&Ws. Hope you guys enjoyed the videos. Hit the subscribe button, please, so you'll get notifications of our new videos as they come out. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate the comments you guys leave. Throw your questions down at the bottom if you have any. I will see you in the next video.